Zoo Boys, Chapter 14, Part D. John's words came out with some uncertainty. He spoke slow and methodically. He wanted to make sure this man didn't feel even the least bit disrespected. Mr. Robinson Crusoe, or, Mr. Crusoe, or, Rob, can you help us get back home? Our families will start wondering where we are. Robinson replied. His fake British accent was gone. Oh, sure, it's easy. Why stay here with me? Why prolong a much-needed visit? You boys, do not fully realize that getting lost on this island, forgotten by others, that is hard, but getting off and found comes easy. Come on, that is easy. His voice was cold, harsh, and agitated. He became more aware of that fact and changed his tone back to sounding friendly. Ahem. He cleared his throat and mind. I mean, yeah, I'll show you. That is simply simple. Come on now, I'll show you. Come now. The boys couldn't help but notice how nervous and fidgety this guy was getting. They grouped together for safety. Dave and John were scanning the room for objects they could use to fight this man if it came to that. Robinson was unraveling even his voice, and repetitious words revealed his instability. Yes, oh yes, I'll show you. I'll show you. I'll show you. All four of you. This is simply simple. Come now. Come on now. I'll show you. Come now. Come now. I might have had one too many come nows on there. He was so visibly and verbally shooken up, Jeremy managed to slip the elephant tusk into his back pocket. He reached and grabbed it, but kept it hidden. Ronnie felt like he was about to pee himself. He covered his pocket, keeping guard on Tina. Robinson snuffed out the torch that was the only thing giving light to the room. The boys clenched up. There was nowhere to run. They crouched down together. Their only comfort came from feeling each other's skin touching their own. Dave whispered softer than he had ever whispered before. Get ready, zoo boys. It was silent, dead, and cold in this cave. Robinson spoke softly too. Leave my stuff behind, and gather only that which belongeth to ye. Say nothing to no one. They heard a creaking sound and saw the outside light slowly creeping down the stairs, leading them to freedom. Robinson was pulling the lever, lifting the rock that sealed the tomb. He spoke as if he had been defeated. This way out. The boys felt a great social tension building as Mr. Robinson began to briskly usher them out of his living space and through the woods. The boys were glad to be back on the surface, but before anyone took any more steps to safety, Robinson shouted, Wait! He exclaimed. I almost forgot! He left the kids standing there just outside his entrance while he was away, running back into his makeshift dungeon. Dave suggested, Let's just run. Just as the words finished coming out of Dave's mouth, the man had already returned. He stated, Gotta have me cow PartA. It's like a taser, but for large bullies. I mean bulls, cows, and other big bad critters here on Zoo Island. Don't leave home without it. He was not only armed, but the boys knew that there was a chance of him using that on them. He kicked the stump used earlier to open the door to his hidden bungalow, and the gigantic rock slammed back down to the ground. The impact shook the soil and blew leaves and debris up into the surrounding area. He commanded their attention as he spoke like a drill sergeant from a Marine Corps boot camp. He held the cow prodder device up high above his head like a drum major as he drove home his point. This device, men, is a fully charged staff. It is equipped with the ability to deliver 50,000 volts. The amperage is technically below safety limits. The M26 packs a serious punch. This sucker is the X26. I hope I said M26 the first time. The M26 packs a serious punch. This sucker is the X26. It delivers a shock that humans cannot withstand. But it's a mere static shock to some of the wild animals we may encounter on the far side of the island. He shouted even louder, Hellhounds beware! Come on, troops, let's move out. Thoroughly intimidated, the boys complied. Robinson escorted them to some type of administration office on the back part of the island. Rather than going around the building, they followed him through the front door, down a long hall, and back out the back rear door. Outside once again, they came to another cage, one that looked like it was set up to hold people. There was a metal bench bolted to one side, and a steel toilet next to it, and a garden hose threaded through two of the bars as a water source. He told the boys to get in, trying to convince them that it was for their safety. He added, The hellhounds hang out here quite often. He tapped the cattle taser in his hand. The boys took the hint and did as he said. He closed the cell and attached a lock on its door, explaining, This lock will keep you extra safe. Monkeys know how to open these doors without a lock. He then went back into the building. Ronnie was first to make a peep. Wouldn't we be safe in the building with him? Jeremy objected. I don't think being with him is safe no matter where we are. Ronnie asked, You think he's gonna leave us in here? Dave offered his pessimism. Don't you get it? He's trying to keep us like animals in a zoo. He's not getting us help. This is just the start of him pulling us through hell. Ron said, I hate hell. We should boycott hell. John said, Shh, listen. They could barely hear Robinson inside the building. They saw a shadow of him just inside one of the windows. They strained to hear. His voice was inhibited by the glass. But they could hear, Yeah, hi. Jeremy said, He's on the phone. Dave shushed him. They made out only parts of his conversation. He was on the phone, but it was impossible to hear the other end of what was being said. Dave gave up on trying to tell what their captor was saying and started looking for a way out. His mind went back to the keys they found, but he had no idea where they were now. He asked Jeremy, Jer, where's that ring with all those keys on it. Jeremy was trying to listen. Dave persisted, grabbing his buddy's shoulder. Jer, where's the keys? Jeremy was jarred. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the single key he found their first night on the island. The large ring full of the variety of keys was lost in their attempt to ward off those hellhounds. This single key was his only hope. He tried reaching around through the bars to see if it fit the lock. Dave was looking for something to use as a weapon. Ron was praying again and fighting the urge to pee. John was listening. He heard Robinson argue. His voice raged as he fought with whoever was on the phone with. Well, helicopter over. See for yourself. This ain't no hoax. Robinson Crusoe, out. He slammed the phone so hard they could hear it clearly from the outside. John clued the others. He's coming back. Jeremy stopped trying the key in the lock, putting it back in his pocket. The man returned, and he looked at the boys with a bit of sympathy. He spoke, this time, with a strong southern hillbilly accent. Well, I ain't keeping you. Nope, I ain't getting to keep you, boys. They wondered if he was putting on the accent. Then they wondered which accent was really his in the first place. Before he unlocked and opened the cage, he told them, head on back on this here main vehicle path. It'll take you in spurtin' near the down rear gates. And waiting for your ride off this here island. Well, again, nice meeting y'all. Y'all is some nice boys. So, anywho, yep, nice knowing you. Yes. With that, he set the boys free. Ronnie was looking around for Quasi. He didn't want to leave her behind. How would he feed Tina without her? He quickly checked his pocket for Tina. She was there, but he didn't see Quasi anywhere. Come to think of it, from the time Robinson showed up, Quasi distanced herself even more than normal. As the boys exited the holding cell, the mysterious Mr. Robinson Crusoe handed Dave another cow-prodding stick and finished with, go on now, get! The boys scurried up the official designated transport road toward the back entrance of the zoo. Sure enough, a helicopter, the large Coast Guard kind, was arriving to pick the boys up and bring them back home. Not only was Quasi nowhere to be found, Mr. Robinson was nowhere around either. As soon as the aircraft landed, the boys were handcuffed and loaded on board. The ride up, and away from the island was not as exciting or dramatic as the kids pictured in their dreams, but it did offer them a view of the island they had never seen before. Just before their escorted ride flew back to the mainland, Ronnie looked out one of the side windows. As the vehicle ascended straight up, Ronnie looked down, just in time to capture one last look at Quasi. There she was, blending in with the landscape so well, but as if she knew what was taking place, he saw her look up and nod her head. Ronnie nudged John next to him and notified with his head. John looked out and saw her too. As they rose, Quasi's figure shrunk in size. John tried to make eye contact with Jeremy and Dave, but their heads were hung in shame. Their eyes were closed tight, and their stomachs were churning, partially from the embarrassment of being caught, as well as a little bit brought on by air sickness, the fear of flying. The boys knew their time in Zoo Island had come to an end, to a complete halt, and now it was time to pay the consequences for their deeds. They were thankful for being rescued. In addition to that, for the first time they realized that they were lucky they didn't pay with their lives. Zoo Island offered at least 1,000 ways to die, and the Zoo boys escaped them all. Next, I'll be moving into the last chapter, chapter 15. This is obviously a rough draft. I don't need to make a lot of excuses, but it is very rough, and it's unedited. Kiri hasn't done any of the editing to the writing yet. Maybe when it's all fixed up and nice, I can re-record it and do a much better job. So now, on to the final chapter, chapter 15.